Did we lose Derek?
He is waiting in the lobby. Someone needs, can Jan let him in?
I'll let him in. See, the one time they were all dead and I called her and she said, you don't have. We might be able to get away with just one. Do you think? Here's another one. Maybe if we do this. Yeah. There'll only be 4 of us here tonight. So. Taylor.
Taylor's coming or Jameson's coming?
Jameson's coming. At least I hope he has. There's Derek. Derek? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We must have found the magic.
It was the magic, turn it off and turn it back on again. I guess am I up to start?
Give us
Or-
just a, if you would here. Just
Okay,
waiting.
just let me know when you're ready.
Thank you. Guess it's just Jameson and. Yeah. Actually, Derek, I think this might be us for a few moments, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here with us this evening.
Okay, yes, thank you to everybody for allowing me the time to go through this. I think probably most everybody understands it has become a much more important topic than maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago. And sort of as the first slide shows, I unfortunately have a couple of first-hand experiences of living and working through cyber attacks. So just as a 2-second introduction, sort of until about a year ago, for 3+ years, I was the CIO for McLaren Healthcare in Michigan. So a $7 billion net patient revenue hospital system. And during that time, we underwent 2 cyber events, so 2 very different ones. But I have learned many things about cybersecurity, our internal systems, external systems, how you deal with it throughout that. And so one of the things that we as a team thought would be a good idea that I periodically update all of our hospitals on sort of the state of cybersecurity and what does that mean for hospitals of that we manage, so rural community hospitals, and what are the basics of what we can be doing to protect ourselves against that. Somebody, can I move the slides? Well, I guess somebody moves on to the next slide, please. So the interesting thing about the cyber attackers is that their tactics have changed significantly over the last 5 years or so, which is actually not a good. It's not a good sign for smaller hospitals. So they went from really being focused on how to get in through what I would call infrastructure things, switches, servers, things like that, to really now being much more focused on social engineering, phishing, and their latest one, which is called malvertising, where they buy social media advertising. And then once you click on that advertising, that's not an advert, it's malware. And so it deploys that malware onto whatever device you're using. And so I know if you read or look at watch CNBC or Bloomberg or anything else like that, there are hundreds of companies touting the fact that they're using AI. It's being deployed rapidly in the detection and defense of against cyber criminals. So CrowdStrike is a good example of one. But we should always be cognizant of the fact that cyber criminals have just as much access to AI as we do. You can move on to the next one. And the other part is the vast majority of the cyber criminals come from Eastern Europe. If they're sort of on their own for commercial advantage. If they're state sponsored, then most of them are either Chinese or North Korean. And so this actually happened during the 2 weeks or so that I was putting this presentation together, where a Chinese state-sponsored hacker group used the Anthropic AI model to automate most of a high-scale attack on a large number of different industries. So the best estimate is that 85% or so of the attack was generated by Anthropic and then sort of remote controlled by the cyber criminals. Next slide, please. So the current, like I said, I think if you looked 5 or 6 years ago, most of the cyber intrusions were from infrastructure related things. So that meant that the cyber criminals actually had to expend money, take the time to go and try and find that chink in your armor, get in through that. Today, that's completely changed. The top 5 cyber threats there are phishing, spear phishing attacks. So asking you to enter your credentials for something typically into an email. Plenty of that via text messages. Nowadays, ransomware deployments, malvertising that I was describing, social engineering and third-party breaches also now very common. So, if they attack one, let's just say they attack one hospital, they'll take or download the entirety of everybody's Outlook, their not only just their calendars, but all of your contacts. And then they'll use those contacts to send out phishing, so that when you receive an email from that person, it might come from Derek Morkel. So I'm a known entity, so you don't have your guard up quite as high. So you would click on that. Like I said, artificial intelligence is a real thing that they're using. I know, we're using it against them. And then a number of them are generous enough that where they've put a platform together that can be used to have a cyber event, they actually sell it as a service to other groups. So if you wanted to start a group tomorrow, so for example, if you just said, tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to put a group of friends together, we're going to start a cyber criminal ring, you can actually go out and purchase the software, the infrastructure necessary to conduct that business. So, that then leaves us as the potential victims of these attacks, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So if we can just go to the next slide, please. So just a history of healthcare, how many healthcare data breaches. This is not just hospitals, but healthcare related, anybody that is a healthcare related business. So you're required, if you have a cyber event, you've got 30 days to report that cyber event to Health and Human Services. Typically, the FBI will call you within 12 hours. They know They know all of these things that are happening when they're happening, etc. So, and then you can see how many lives or individuals have been affected by data breaches in the past 12 months. So it's a significant number, and certainly not going down at the present point in time. Next slide, please. So this is on the Health and Human Services website. The actual URL is listed at the bottom. It is updated typically every 6 months or so. And so you can see these are the top 10 most active ransomware groups. I've had the pleasure of dealing with number 2 and number 9, Black Cat and Ransom Inc. So Black Cat was the first one that I dealt with, and Ransom Inc. was the second one. So what this report, it's a long report because it goes into exactly what each group does, how do they do it, what software do they deploy, etc. The interesting one was Inc. ransomware attacked McLaren, but had already written a piece of software code that invalidated Microsoft's primary tool for preventing this exact thing to happen. So their tool is called Defender. The ransomware that was deployed against us was deployed via malvertising. Actually, it was somebody at a clinic who was looking for a place to eat lunch, inadvertently downloaded it. The endpoint security on that device was Microsoft Defender, so it got past that phase of the defense immediately. So unfortunately, every time there's one of our companies in the United States or the Western world writes software that we believe will prevent this, they've got it, they've downloaded it, and they're writing software to try and bypass that security step. Next slide, please. So common penetration points. I've been through most of these. So phishing is number one. Malvertising has grown in popularity. There is still plenty of risk, not so much for a brand new hospital. The legacy systems, clinical equipment has now sort of become one of the bigger risks, because almost every piece of clinical equipment is connected to the internet, to some monitoring that's done by the company that maintains that information. Social engineering is another one. Just people playing at different roles to get people to give up their credentials. Mostly that's related to sort of playing that they're your HR department. They need your information to update payroll, to send you a W-2, things like that. And then software patching is another one. So all of them monitor and keep up to date all the time on which major systems patching are at risk. And so if they know that you have a certain type of software server, etc., and it's not being patched, then they know what the risk is and how to get through it. And so then they'll just go through pretty much every company that they can to figure out if you have that or you don't. Next slide, please. So phishing continues to be the number one attack vector of all of them. I'm sure you all have seen this in your businesses, in your personal life, everything. It all comes back to, if you don't know the person, delete it. If you look at the URL that sits at the top after the email address, if that you don't recognize that, don't delete it. In my case, I just delete them all, and if you're really serious about it, or your company is, you'll send it back to me again, or call me and figure that out. Nothing too bad ever comes from deleting more of those types of emails than less. And education of your staff of that importance is of critical importance. Next slide, please. So the question that comes out of that, which like I said, having gone through this with any number of, or internally at McLaren with consultants, for the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, everybody, all businesses, not just hospitals, have spent almost all our money on keeping the cyber criminals out of our network. And to do that, we also have affected where we have tried to put everything we can in a single network, because it does make it cheaper and more efficient to deploy anti-cyber assets. However, the flip side of that is that, so if you take McLaren, for example, 12 hospitals, a health plan, nursing homes, you name it, corporation, everything was in one network. So once they got in one time into that and figured out how to move around, they didn't come into any roadblocks to move from one place to the other. And so I would say 95 to 98% of all entities have spent almost all their money in doing that. So creating a single network and then trying to keep them out. And so the thought process has changed a little bit now to where we've still got to spend the vast majority of our time and energy trying to keep them out, but we do need to make sure that we have tools within our networks that allow us to detect them faster if they manage to get into our network, to potentially look at our networks and figure out, if you had a nursing home and a hospital, do they both need to be on the same network, or can you separate them? And then tools to eliminate the threat once they've reached your network. And so there's some thought nowadays to move from a single network to a segmented networks, a little more expensive, but certainly safer. And then one of the things that is critically important is protecting your Active Directory from any unknown or unauthorized or strange behavior. So Active Directory is typically the name given to a piece of software on your network that manages all of the permissions and utilizations for every piece of software that you have in your system. So for example, it would have, here's Derek Morkel for all Outlook stuff is allowed this. For the EMR, he's allowed this permission, but here's his username and password, etc. for all of these things. So if you get into the furthest level of Active Directory, you then have the username and password of every single person that has access to any and all of your software and applications, your clinical equipment, etc. And then the last one is detection. So do you have tools to detect abnormal network traffic? There's a direct correlation between the amount of time that they're in your network and not found, and the amount of data that they're able to take out of your network, and the amount of destruction that they can cause to your network. All of this being said is, if we go back to, we don't have to go back, but if we go back to at least monitoring what are the new tools, what are the new tricks that are out there, is just making sure that we're keeping track of that at a high level, and so that we don't have any major holes in that. And so one of the main purposes of this and keeping this updated on a continuous basis for our hospitals is to do that. Next slide, please. So key areas for, hospitals to cover. So one is endpoint security and a version of endpoint security that hasn't been compromised. Active Directory protection. So if they ever do get in, that Active Directory is protected. From keeping them out. Phishing education is probably number one. Some of the rest of the stuff that is on there is certainly a pertinent problem for lots and lots, almost all hospitals, because almost all hospitals in this country have old PCs, old laptops, old servers. In many cases, don't have the IT staff to make sure that everything is patched. Maybe they don't have the most up-to-date firewalls. And the other part is that, as time goes by and you add a new piece of equipment, place an old piece of equipment, you got to make sure that pathway to the internet for all of that equipment, radiology, ICU type equipment, patient monitoring, all of that is tested. And then probably one critical one, which was certainly something that McLaren learned in the first incident, was inventory management. So if you don't know where all of the inventory is of all of your pieces of equipment that are listed above or anything that connects to the internet, then it's very difficult to be able to state in the affirmative that you've deployed all of the things to all of the pieces of equipment that you should. And then legacy systems, again, not something that's an issue today for Sublette, but certainly is for many of our other hospitals, that if they've had an EMR change, small ones, big ones, that those legacy systems are restricted and in a segregated environment. Next slide, please. This, hopefully we don't ever have to do this, but here's some, certain important points. So if something does happen, the first person you call is the insurance broker, because they will have approved people that they use to mitigate these incidents. And if you don't use those people, then there's a high likelihood that they won't pay. There's insurance limits, so testing, making sure you're covered, that you have reasonable levels. Test all internet contact points. So on a very, very quiet day, it's sometimes good to just turn the internet off for 10 minutes just to see and back on where you have points, clinical, PCs, etc. Test that, because the very first thing that you need to do when you have an incident is shut everything down to the internet. That would put the hospital on downtime procedures. So got to make sure that you've got downtime procedures, paper procedures for everything that goes on in the hospital. One thing that we learned was that tracking where your patients are and what has happened to them is critical, so that you don't, first of all, that you know where they are, but that you don't lose revenue. And then also vendor payments. So typically, if you have, for example, your financials and your AP system, just backing that up to outside of your typical backup system once a month or once a quarter, is a good idea. Next slide, please. So that's the end of the presentation. I would say, I always hear from hospitals that say, oh, well, we're a small hospital, this is probably not going to happen to us. And so I think 5-10 years ago, that's probably would have been a fair statement, right? But the way that they're distributing malware or going after industries now is, so the group that that attacked or was successful in attacking McLaren Inc. ransomware. If you read the details about that company or organization, because of how they use malvertising to distribute malware, they're not really that interested in whether you're a bank, you're a manufacturing company, or you're a hospital. It's whoever is going to click the link and get the malware where the malware is able to deploy. And so, after the last incident, and then, coming back to health tech, we felt that it was important that we educate and make sure we at least at a minimum understand, what the risks are. Where do we go for information to find out about that? What are the basics of what we need to do? Understanding that there is no way that we would be able to. We can't employ. None of our hospitals can afford to employ a cybersecurity expert, but there is a ton of highly useful information that's out there. And then, like I said, unfortunately for me, I made a significant number of contacts with people in that side of the industry over the last few years. So, anybody have any questions, comments about that? Are we scared enough?
Little, yeah.
So yeah, there's sort of, other than a natural disaster, nothing can create more havoc at the present point in time than a cyber event.
I appreciate the information, Derek. And I guess I have one question, but maybe it's more appropriate to direct it to Brett, who I see is on the call. Brett, I know that you've come in and spoken to us a year and a half ago about cybersecurity. And at that point, we were just kind of gearing up to transition to hospital. Can you, after having seen this presentation tonight, how confident are you in our systems now that we've made the transition? And do you feel like we have all of these proper protections in place?
Yes, we're covering every single one of those bases that Derek mentioned. The thing that keeps me up at night, and I think Derek would probably agree with this, is that he and I both know that there's probably half a dozen things on the list that nobody is aware of to look for as these attackers. They're constantly changing their vector.
Yep.
And that's kind of what keeps me up at night, is the danger that we don't know about yet. But the things that we do know about, we can and do mitigate for currently.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. That the first thing is one should never assume that the hackers are sort of static over there, right? They're working as hard as anybody, trying to figure out what the next way is, either straight through our tools like I described, or around our tools. They've got a lot of money. They face almost no consequence for their actions whatsoever. And they're working just as hard as we are to find the next pathway in, which is kind of sad. And as you can see from sort of just my experience in the last 3 or 4 years, it has changed completely in 5 years. We went back as an organization at McLaren and looked at the tools that had been installed when we started a formal cyber program roughly 10 years ago. And every one of those tools didn't really have any applicability anymore. So you just have to keep up with it.
Do you have a good understanding of why there are no repercussions or minimal repercussions for the companies that are doing this? Is it just because they're hard to identify, or because they're
No, they're in
country
Russia. Most of them are in Russia.
just have no jurisdiction to?
No, none. I've met with the FBI as part of this twice, and all they wanted was information from us. When we pressed them for information, like where are these people? Why are you not doing anything? Or, all I got was, it's a different department. I don't deal with that. Tell me what happened, give me all the details, etc. But they're, every now and again you see where we, beat our chest because we blew up 300 servers of some cyber criminal gang. Well, they've got 40,000 other servers that they can flip to in a second. So I think it's just they're in countries that don't hold them accountable for it at all.
May I add to that?
Oh, sure.
I think a lot of the most dangerous actors are actually state sponsored, so they're
Yeah.
on Russia's payroll or North Korea's payroll. So they're being rewarded by their state by doing these criminal activities.
Yeah, they're viewed as destabilizing. Well, in the case of North Korea, they're how they make money.
It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Thanks for keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, so we will keep this updated roughly once every 6 months or so, and redistribute it. And if there's anything that is changed within that, we'll certainly let everybody know.
Anyone have questions for Derek or Brett?
I have one, I guess, just kind of curious, like, I appreciate the presentation and the information, but are there other ways that health tech can help us, kind of be continually evaluating our systems or provide assistance to Brett and his team as needed?
So other than keeping up to date on this, we don't. I guess I would be the main IT person at our company, so we don't maintain an IT team per se ourselves. We have another group that we subcontract with that does our own cybersecurity through my past positions. I certainly know as many people if there are questions, but I think I covered probably for cybersecurity 90+% of the sort of overall basics of what has to happen pending pending cyber criminals changing their vectors over time.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks for your time this evening, Derek.
Yes, no, thank you for yours. We appreciate it.
All right, well, the time's come to call our meeting to order. Does anyone need a quick break? Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will you please join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation, indivisible, liberty and justice. Thank you. Thanks to all who are joining us this evening. It's Wednesday, January 28th. This is a regular meeting of the board, and our first item of business is to set the agenda. I do have one quick addition that I forgot to ask Jan to put on here, and that would be under building committee. I need to ask the board for signatory approval for the next pay app, which will be December. Or could be December/January. We're not entirely sure how that will work out yet. Any other additions, changes? Okay, Bill, anything from on your end? Right. Then with that addition, I would ask for a motion to set the agenda.
Madam Chair, I would move to set the agenda with the addition of the item under building committee.
Thank you, Kenda. Motion.
Second.
Thanks, Jameson. Motion in a second. Any further questions or comments in the group? Okay, all in favor of the motion to set the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, and we have two policies for board review and approval. It's my understanding that these policies have both been revised. These are just revisions. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes, related to.
Okay. Meet survey.
And Lena looked at them, didn't she ask about this?
Yeah,
So we're good
that
there.
has Lena had the opportunity to review these before they've been brought to?
Yes, Madam Chair, I've had an opportunity to review them.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? The policies?
I have a question, I guess, about the policies in general, or the policies themselves. I guess I just have kind of a question on both of them as like how, I guess maybe specifically like our governing body responsibility, like how we, if there's anything that we should be doing to be looking at these on a somewhat regular basis to like grade ourselves, like doing on.
A great question. I know we've talked at times that we need to be doing board evaluations, not something we've implemented yet, but we should make part of our strategic plan.
Okay.
In the upcoming year, maybe.
Wondered even our new governance officer might be something we want to put
On
on
my
this
list of
plate.
things, I'm like. Okay, that's how to do that.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention it because it just, as I'm looking through it, I'm like, okay, you know, how am I doing to?
How are we doing?
How are we doing?
And the question is,
Yeah.
are we doing these things? You know,
Right. And I guess kind of same thing with the QAPI is just kind of understanding like how our, you know, progress on whatever's defined as our, you know, our QAPI program, like how that will be presented to the board and how we should expect.
So one of the requirements access on is to do an annual evaluation. So the process that I would they review that. So it feeds very nicely into later strategic. So year the board doing as how the nation is in a position to evaluate and then set changes to based on that evaluation.
Thanks, Bill.
Seems like a good process. Just another one of those we haven't got in place yet.
Right.
Okay, any further questions or comments? We have a motion and a second then to approve the consent agenda, so I will ask for a vote. If there are no further comments, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda under consent agenda would be meeting minutes, and this would be for December 17th and January 14th to include any executive session.
Sure, I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 17th and January 14th.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments, corrections anyone noticed? I'll ask for a vote then. All in favor of the motion to approve the meeting minutes from 12/17, January 14, and corresponding executive session minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment. So I will open the floor for anyone who would like to speak publicly. Questions, concerns, comments? So quiet. We have no one on Teams, Jen, that would like to comment. Oh, it's okay. Good to know. All right, going once, twice. All right, let's move on. Next item on the agenda is committee reports, and first up is building. So I will actually give Lena just a moment to kind of give you a quick update about where we are at with everything in the world of construction.
You bet. Kind of have a lot going on next week. As the board may be aware, we've had some issues with our boilers, and so we are having the whole team come out and troubleshoot and take a look at the boilers to try and figure out what's going on there. Boiler number 2 is just not as efficient as it should be, and so really need to get that up and running. So they will all be on site next week, but they will be back of house. So if there are any concerns about them being there, if and when we are surveyed, please don't worry about that because they will be back of house. Everyone has been asked to make sure though that all subs are notified not to leave doors propped open, make sure we have all of our ICRA permits in place, no ladders hanging out where they shouldn't be and so forth, just in case that survey does take place next week. Things are looking pretty good. Still just waiting on a couple of doors to arrive and parts for the crank door in the gift shop. But other than that, we're getting really, really close to wrapping everything up. Right now, just kind of shoring up our accounting pieces. So we do have a couple of change orders hanging out there, but nothing big. They're just accounting pieces. So it's not that the work hasn't been done yet. It's just trying to make sure all of our paperwork is in line to make sure we can keep moving towards closing that loan.
Thank you, Lena. I would add that we instituted a deadline of tomorrow, no, day after tomorrow, the 30th, for Layton to submit any and all remaining change orders. We said we review and approve anything beyond that date. So Layton's been hustling and got a few last minute ones coming in. Yeah, just working really hard towards closing.
We have an anticipated time frame.
Closing? We're not sure.
We do not yet.
Okay.
But,
So potentially in the next month.
Yeah, we're kind of waiting on some things with the USDA. So
Worth noting too, I forgot to give you guys an update. So we are still working with the team to revise the secure holding doors so that they function as the staff have requested. So that's still being worked on. But we're getting closer and closer to that, as well as that variance for the memory care courtyard, that gate and so forth. So getting really close to wrapping those pieces up.
thank you, Lena. Any questions? Anybody? Instruction? Would you be willing to consider allowing me to sign the next pay app then? It's currently in process. We were hopeful that we would have it ready by today, but we're still trying to compile some of the last minute documentation. So I'm hopeful by the end of the week, ready to go. I'll need your approval to sign it and get it out the door.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. It might be important to note, just for the board's knowledge, that there are no like fees or anything like that from Layton. It literally is just the change orders being processed. So hopefully that makes it easier.
Thank you for that clarification, Lena.
Okay, Madam Chair, I would move that we authorize Board Chair Tanya Hoffman to sign the December/January pay app when it's ready.
Thank you. Motion? Second. And a second. Any questions or concerns from the group? Okay, regarding the motion to give me authority to sign the pay app upon its readiness, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the foundation. Harry. Thank you.
Financials are, we have 1.4 million left in the money market account, 25,000 in the checking as of January 12th. We paid 33,000 in the October payout out, and the remaining projects are here in the peach on the column, so all the ones that still have costs associated with them. So the 36,000 we have remaining under MRI, and about 33,000 will be paid in that. Yeah, like I mentioned, the nurse call is going into clinic as well, and done yet is our understanding. So that 66,000 we're holding $33,000 for the stained glass, the EMS funds. We're still holding 215,000 for landscaping, and it's something we don't we budgeted up to 500. Didn't need that. We have received 53,000 in donations for surgery suites, holds, and then we're holding the ambulance MRG grant match for last year. The ambulance $100,000 ambulance donation for Jonah. But if you flip the page, that's the drum roll. That means we have $757,000 just to stay. So, the foundation board had a really happy meeting. So I did some rough math there on the thing, but if you take that and then last meeting, you guys approved the IT project, the HRIS, and 115,000, you approved 79,000 for the door. So that would give us 562. Questions on? And again, that number will go up. No more than go up by 2%. So the foundation was. That's great. With that, we rolled into some new business, which again, you know, the system suggests something, the foundation brings it to the little board. So here under new business, rolling over the EMS class funds. You see right there, we had allocated $13,480 for a spring and a fall class last year. Had some leftover BOCES funding, and the classes ran under budget, and so we only spent $4,800. So the foundation approved, pending in the rolling over the remaining $8,620 to the 2026 class and adding $1,377, so grand that they need to hold. I don't know. I can run through these three items and then if you want to. That's the first item is rolling over that. The second one is, if you remember, there's 6 ambulances in our fleet, and 2 of them are from 2012. So they have a good end of life. And so last year in 2025, we went to the slip board and asked for an ambulance. So that ambulance has yet to arrive. It should be coming in. But that takes out one of the 2000. So BJ's plan, with Bill's approval, was to remount the other vehicle onto a new chassis. Give that one. And so the MRG grants are due February 19th. So if you wanted to approve, it's on the agenda later to approve the resolution. Foundation was suggesting that maybe we fund a third of it, and so the foundation suggested 85,000. When we got the quote back and the quote, I think on the MRG grant tab, it came up to 240. So BJ and I were recommending maybe you would vote for 3,091. So that would be a 91 ambulance. That is the second item. That way we could go to the school board and say, hey, we can pay for a third of it, here's this, and then we can claim that it would be. And then the third item is the dormitory project. The foundation board remembered that we had just funded 10 rooms instead of 16. But that hotel bill that we pay every day, kind of struck home with the foundation board, and so they had recommended putting in the additional 31,000 for the employee to get the full 16 rooms. It's so right here in the middle of the page, I did helpful math. I'm not implying that you guys will approve to want to, but I was just thought that might be helpful to have in there. So with that, we have 562,000 remaining. We would have 400. So those were the three motions. Those were motions made by the foundation board. Remember any questions?
Assisted living.
That's next. Yeah. Do the assisted living, and then we will do those three first questions. And you, Bill, you're welcome.
You wanna go
first.
No, you go first.
Okay. On the MRG grant and the match, like, does the SLIB board expect like match, or is do you think going to be well received? Or is it hard to say? And sometimes they'll take it when they're due. The meeting's not till June, so sometimes they'll come back and say, because when we first did our MRG grant last year, if you remember, we offered zero match. Building hospital, so we offered zero, and that didn't go over. That's when we. But again, I'm laying out all the money if you guys want to up. I just wasn't sure, like, if I think that will be pretty well received. I think that's the low.
Yeah, my question kind of could piggyback off of that too, and I don't know that we have any information yet. I know it's everything still kind of in the steamer, but I know that EMS in particular is a priority point with the rural health transformation plan. Do you see any change in structuring of these funds, or well,
All of
I guess my hesitation was we've asked them for a lot of help. And they have helped us significantly. I would hate to put in for this and have it impact the rural health transformation administration. Okay, that's what I was kind of wondering. Okay, thank you. Not
Yes,
split.
there's a little. Thing.
Yeah,
Involvement of the legislature. The other variable is say you're
yeah,
wanting to create this and in concept, great idea, really limit which is available today, but I think for the stuff. This is the point. Is hospitals, death services today, as you're working.
Repeats
so
the point.
distant.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be curious to see how all this rolls in. Transformation fund. In my report, and said, right now, I don't think we should bank on it. It's just too many.
Yeah.
We don't.
Understood. I just don't want them to get tired of hearing us. So,
Yeah, I think the narrative.
That's their
that we
concern
get
to me.
6 rigs, 2, 2 of them are 12. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
15
there's
years old.
absolutely a
Yeah.
need.
So I don't think we're intending to.
That would make shows well thought out strategy. They ask you for next year building them. So now will have been really as sustainable than
Thank you. Question. Would the board like to take action on the presented items?
One more question on the dormitory. I'm assuming that that's 6 more rooms. 31,000. Assuming we're paying $100 night right now for. I mean, the payback on that is pretty short. Okay.
one of the questions whether or not for travelers charge is if we are currently having more sense just not to
Just
that would be an incentive to use the space. Then there are other employees interested we have employees that's in a charge the tree.
I think it's great.
Yeah, the foundation thought, well, we're in there, just do all the hallway.
Yeah. Any more questions? Like to make a motion? We
We have to do these
them
separately.
together. We can do them separately.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve rolling over the EMS class funding that was remaining from 2025 into 2026, adding an additional $1,377 to provide the 10. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry to stop in the middle of my motion, but can we do the ambulance now, or do we need to do that later in this?
It is down there in new
The
business.
new business is resolution to apply for it.
Okay, oh, so this is just, okay. Approving the
This is
$91,000 match, okay. Okay, to approve the $91,000 match for the MRG grant for a new chassis and remounting team. Approving $31,000 towards the employee dormitory project. Full 16 rooms.
Thank you, Ashley. So we have a motion in essence to cover all 3 items, the EMS rollover, the match on the ambulance, and the increase on the rooms for the dormitory. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I will second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or concerns about that? Okay, then I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the motion on the table for those 3 approvals, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
The next thing we talked about is assisted living. Oh, it's not the way, and they were both there. There's a lot of discussion on the heritage home being full, fairly full. And that, Don, you know, as people age out of the independent living apartments that we have. Big question. And then I think polling at the Hill has kind of unmasked down there. Maybe there was people there all along that are struggling with the changes. And so knowing that eventually the Sublette Center Annex or the, right now, eventually there, Bill had suggested taking on making the and he suggested that it would be for the other piece of this too is that Marilyn Jensen's aunt donated that $600,000 basic and whole. And we looked at could it be floor padding, and then no, we'd already put the slab at the Heritage Home and we options. But if you guys tell us to go after assisted living, then we could we use that money for that, yeah. And Don speaks to that, kind of speaks to the intention of the gift. So it's kind of fun to come full circle.
I think Marilyn would love that. Don't you?
Yeah. So of what you would need, and then Bill had suggested if you guys wanted direction that we would 200,000 of Marilyn's gift towards planning fee. Gift, the actual, this is kind of work. But that was a lot of the discussion, and Sharon Ziegler, surgery suite advocate to the end, motioned. I know that we, that the foundation would take on assisted living as the next major capital campaign and start working to fund $400,000 for planning. And then knowing that surgery would be hot on the heels next, like we don't see any other detours in the path, but this seemed like easier to bite off, a smaller chase this. That's something else.
Fills a need that doesn't exist in the community, allows us to use an asset, short-term offices, and how we fundraise sources matches with the timeline building access to. So having the board designate this as a priority reinforces our ability, not just through philanthropy, also housing from a residential perspective, there will be available. So depending on where the money goes, CDBG might be in play. By both boards having stated this to be a priority, and will be officially able to go and start funding like.
Have you done any, and I'm only asking this, Bill, because we're coming hot off the heels of a huge construction project, but what do you anticipate the construction need to look like in that building to get it ready?
So I'm working under the assumption that the three things will resolve some of the standing concerns. Determine the size. So assisted living can be anywhere from square feet 600. So it's on all the same variety of different patients. How does that fit in the confines? Also, look at isn't it a cases? So how will the kitchen be hungry? Those spaces and areas now. So all of those ifs the big aims with how we're going to use this conservation. Sense that it's going to be people are going to should not be much. It's the technology that's needed. Same sort of system, but you really need internet. So cost less. All of those that information comes from that. planning.
Didn't we have some exterior issues as well, like with erosion, foundation, or from snow and runoff? It seems like I remember conversations about that over the years, but I don't know how significant it was.
Can I ask Don how you're feeling about this? Because I think it's a fantastic idea. I love it. It just was something that was in my 10-year
Yeah.
10-year plan,
Yeah.
not immediate. So I'm just curious as to how you're feeling about it. Well, I have one more question for you about this too. You are unfortunately only with us for a short time. This seems like a big bite to take on amidst all of our other current challenges. And I understand completely your intent in pursuing this. I think it's fantastic. But do you feel that it's something your predecessor can confidently come in and will have the right pieces in place for them to be able to continue down this road if we approve it at this point?
So I would say any instant embrace the project shouldn't be a serious thing. Challenges that you face sort of negative light as we do with Sherry. This is entirely suppressing our vision. Now we're trying to stabilize. They should be also shouldn't be CEOs. Certainly going once it moves into actually implement training phase, I think that staff support and committee support, see it being
Thank you. Sorry for all the questions. I just want to make sure we're moving in the right
One
direction.
more. How much, what kind of delay as far as the surgery suite? I mean, are we talking, because that's kind of, in my mind, been like important because of revenue.
time that I had with surgery is the operating cost. Explain why. So when you surgical for one general surgery, right now a general surgery is that's if you have one. If you have one, then you're gonna really get then you need your anesthesia. So I would suggest CRNA. Is better. It's $2 million. Day versus only going. Since you're patient even if you can
Okay, I guess I had the impression that it would be available to, say, Teton Orthopedics to come and do knee replacements, and we wouldn't have to employ
Bring their
them.
team.
They would bring their team. So that's not the case?
So my experience, I would say orthopedics, strange. If you're just gonna do these scopes, and in your rating, maybe. Knee replacement. Just in the beginning. it's too long.
So you don't feel there's really a way to utilize a surgery suite without employing the surgeons?
No, I think orthopedics, I think visiting orthopedics. Just don't see that happening. You go from no OR. Like going to school.
Okay,
No, it's hard. It's exactly what the opposite of what we've talked about for so long and
Yeah.
heard from previous administrators, right?
right.
So.
Bill, can you speak to some of the conversations you and I have had in that regard? Because I've asked the same questions, but being able to perform some of those procedures in the space that we currently have.
Right, so can we begin to look at doing some of the smaller outpatient procedures, scopes in existing space? That's one of the reasons why I've been reluctant to designate spaces that are available in the clinic from big lab, CT, X-ray spaces. So that back hallway. I think that you could put together a plan, say that you could do limited outpatient procedures in cases. There are companies that bring in everything you need to scope except for the doctor. So if we can have procedure room, post-op space, actually reduce scopes here, volume that the front is higher than it actually would be. But those are plans that I think we can interim again to build sort of an estimate of what volumes would be in the OR eventually built, so that you could do sort of, using my football example, we would be doing college prep.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
helpful
It is.
information,
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Question?
Of course.
So along those lines, assisted living, is there a profit in that, or is it a kind of a break-even game? So in my mind is going like, can this be the engine that gets us to surgery, or is this a thing where we're gonna just hold our own, get to the, that's where we can.
So right now, I think of the fence and the Heritage Home, resident care center, that's bumping them. Assisted living would fall under. Right now, resident care services makes a little bit of a mark for us. And so I don't imagine assisted living is going to be cash cow for us. But I think if we do it right, and that's where the mix of the apartment, I believe that it can be even. And one of the big variables will be how much, if there is any debt on it, is required. So if we can fundraise so that then the financial viability of the operation is much different than any debt. So that's where I think it's so important to use 3-year window that I'm describing. Look at all the available options to bring this additional residential space to bear so that we don't have much of any of it.
True, and at the same time, we can,
Up on my text and they cannot hear what you're saying, and you're dying to hear you.
You want to come up here?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
I'm done.
space that's now not used, we're still paying the power bill, light bill, maintaining it, right? So that it's costing us money to keep owning this asset, right?
And that's one of the reasons why I felt it was useful to have something viable, because vacant space deteriorates more quickly, especially if you don't heat it. And so if we're going to be heating it, let's make use of it. And so when I've looked at the cost, I think you talked about return on investment. The investment we're making in these spaces, a 3-year payback is certainly more than reasonable. So the big question that I haven't answered yet is, so if the offices move into the public health space, where does the dormitory move? If the dormitory project is really popular, we're going to have to figure out a new home for that. Right. But again, we're going to have time. Part of it is a guess, part of it is experience. So we would initially do sort of our own internal phasing. What are the steps that we need to do? And then we would issue an RFP, and then have someone do what I'll call preliminary work, evaluate our initial plan, tell us whether that's realistic or not, and then help us develop a more robust plan. Then we do a final RFP to get someone in here to help us actually design it. So go through schematic design, design development, ultimately construction documents. And so I tried to be open with the foundation board. It may be that the 400,000 needs to be modified, but if we don't have a target, it's difficult to even get started.
Like, are there?
Yes, and so you can go traditional architect contractor, you can go design build, where you have a company. So actually the assisted living center that I built in Julesburg, Colorado, we did design build. So we had one company that was responsible for the whole thing. So during the project planning, we'll be able to evaluate those different options and see which we think is the best.
We like design.
I
I don't think you'd have to press too hard.
No.
The design team and the constructors they're married from the beginning.
You might have an argument from your board chair. About that. But that's a long way down. Okay, does anyone have? Proposal? Okay. If someone would like to do it. and a second. Any other turn discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a vote then. Motion to approve the uh, major capital campaign beginning from the foundation to fundraise to dollar planning. Favor, please specify. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item, I gave you a little current project update. The sanctuary, they've put a goal for the stained glass for August 4th, which will be our 1 anniversary. Great. They're, Sharon Ziegler and Nancy Stevens are working on fused glass. The outside will still be regulars. We can help. So they will hand different stained glass artists and do this corner, you do this side. So it'll be team effort. The other current projects in are the IT project. And then board terms, just because it's been a whirlwind, I put the original 2023 when we formed the County Health Foundation Board, just 23. But the 1-year terms are Luann Height, who would love to be reelected, break her heart if you didn't, and 2 board members. I think we have Tanya and Ashley, and then the 2nd-year terms you did last year, so we don't need to. 3rd-year terms are up for reappointment. Sharon Rich, Sid Sandhill, and Nancy Espenscheid, and all 3. But it says in the foundation bylaws, the hospital district. And it's January. Here we are.
I'd like to, if it's okay with everyone, put that off until we do new business. Into the committee appointments and things like that, if everyone's comfortable with that. We can just discuss it all at once.
Great. Great.
Is everyone good with that?
Thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. Finance Committee. B.
Well, the Finance Committee met last Tuesday, and we went through an excruciating amount of detail regarding November and December revised budget. And we won't spend the same 2.5 hours going through all that detail unless you have specific questions. So I would like to present a more abbreviated review highlighting the big items that impacted the financial statements for those 2 months. As we tried to close November and December, Michelle identified a number of issues that occurred during her maternity leave that kind of created some issues for us. And there were missing revenue batches, there were missing bank statement payments, misclassification of expenses. So a lot of that contributed to making it difficult to get to the end point of closing those months financially. Some of those changes resulted in impacting some of the previous months' reported financials. The total amount of that retroactive adjustment for August through October was about $350,000 positive. So it increased our revenues by about $350,000 for those months. That goes back to those missing revenue batches. So in November, we had a couple of significant adjustments that were made. One was for contractual allowances. We recorded an adjustment of about $1.6 million, and that was a result of the estimated allowances for the outstanding accounts receivable not being calculated correctly. There were 2 elements to that. One was missing gross revenues that weren't included in the calculation, and the second part was using estimated allowances that were far too low. So we made those 2 adjustments, and the year-to-date adjustment, like I said, through the end of October was about $1.6 million. The allowances for November by itself was about $1 million. So we had $3.4 million in the contractual allowances. That didn't leave a whole lot of net, only $577,000 of net operating revenue. Most of it, like I said, was due to the allowances not being calculated correctly. And then the November by itself. On the expense side, we also had to catch up on depreciation expense. So the hospital opened in August, long-term care opened in October. No depreciation expense had been recognized for the 2 new buildings for that period of time. We ran this by Eide Bailey, the methodology that I used to estimate the depreciation that should have been taken. While they wouldn't commit to saying, yeah, that's absolutely right, they agreed with the philosophy and the process that I took, and agreed that it needed to go back to August for the hospital and October for the long-term care. So that catch-up adjustment was $1.1 million, August through October. Ongoing, that depreciation amount is just over $400,000 per month. The budget did have $320,000 a month, which was a little bit lower than what reality is going forward. So operating income, we had these adjustments, the 2 big ones that I noted. The rest of the operating expenses were fairly close to budget. Really, it was revenue and depreciation. I hope you have had a chance to review the revised version of the income statement that was provided. You know, you'll have a statement like this each month going forward. I think it's a little bit easier to follow. You have your month-to-date information on the left-hand side. You have your year-to-date information on the right-hand side. I also added a line at the bottom for EBITDA, and that's mostly to provide a closer approximation to what cash flow happened to be. So EBITDA takes out depreciation expense because that's a non-cash expense. We've already spent that. So it's a reasonable approximation. It's not exact, but it's a better measure of what the cash flow is than just looking at your excess revenue expenses. On the balance sheet, at the end of November, obviously, we're still not billing Medicare and Medicaid. Net patient AR had grown to about $9.8 million. Any questions on November before I jump into December? Okay, in December, we again had a significant adjustment in the contractual allowances. And that adjustment this time was for the Medicare and Medicaid claims that were not going to be billed for the period of time August 4th through September 15th, when we didn't have a Medicare number. So that was about $1.3 million total charges. Total gross charge. So the net amount of that would have been less, but the gross charges was $1.3 million. All of it got billed in December. So again, that resulted in net patient revenues not being terribly strong at $1.1 million. On the expense side, we also had an adjustment, interest expense for the bond payments. We're not currently paying any principal, but we still have to pay interest for those bonds. And there was not an accrual being made in anticipation of those interest payments, and they're semi-annual. So there's a semi-annual interest payment of $863,000, I think is close to $815,000. We hadn't accrued anything for it, so all that interest expense hit in 1 month. That's not typically how most organizations would proceed accounting wise. You should be accruing that interest on a monthly basis. So we've changed that, and going forward, we are accruing $140,000 a month interest expense. So for the second month in a row, we had a loss of about $2.5 million, increasing the year-to-date loss to $6 million for the first half of the year. Net accounts receivable continued to grow and was up to just shy of $11 million at the end of December. But on the positive note on the AR, as of today, almost through the end of January, we're at 11, just under, or just over $11 million. So the rate of growth in our AR has slowed. It's still growing because we're still not quite billing for Medicare. We have billed for Medicaid. We're testing, there's a lot of NPI issues with TriZetto. TriZetto is our fiscal intermediary that takes the claims from Ocean and sends them on to Noridian, our fiscal intermediary. And there were a lot of issues in the TriZetto system that Mariah is doing a great job of ironing out. But rather than just drop a bunch of claims and hope some of them get paid, we don't want to do that. That's going to create a bigger mess to fix than doing it right in the first place. So that's why that's taking a little bit more time than we had hoped. We do hope to, well, I'll go through Mariah's explanations here. So we have dropped 60 Medicaid claims. There weren't a whole lot of Medicaid claims to drop. So there's about 60 of those that we have dropped. As I mentioned, she's working out the TriZetto issues. Once those get tested successfully, we can start dropping those bills as well. And that should happen pretty quickly once we get all the testing completed. Key items that remain in progress and are critical to moving the AR forward. We have miscellaneous charges. A lot of those are for supplies and things of that nature. Sharon is actively working through those to ensure that they get posted accurately. There's a revenue integrity process that Mariah has instituted. Nursing and Durain are both working on reviewing some of those revenue integrity items. We do have an issue with the charge master. When it was set up initially back in July and August, in the ED, there are two elements that get charged. There's the facility or technical component, so billing for the room and the supplies and the nurse time and that kind of stuff. And then there's the pro fee, which is the physician time. Typically, your facility or technical charge is much greater than your physician charge. Unfortunately, both charges were assigned the same, or both items were assigned the same charge amount, which is grossly inaccurate. So we're in the process of restating those pro fees going back to the beginning of August. Most of those bills haven't dropped, but the bills that have, we're going to avoid and rebill. There were about $2.5 million in total gross charges that we're voiding and then rebilling, and it will be at a lesser amount, of course. But we couldn't very well say, today you visited the ED and we only charged you $200. Last month, you visited the ED and we charged you $2,000. That's not very good PR, and it's not the right thing. And we very much want to do the right thing and bill the right amounts and not have a huge change going from 1 month and retroactively just ignoring that and saying, well, sorry, we made a mistake. Sorry, we overcharged you. We don't ever want to be in that situation. So we are processing through that. We're waiting for Epic to run a specific routine to make those changes, but those should be flowing through probably in February. And then we have some X-ray and lab visits that are not associated with accounts the right way, so we're working fixing those things. So there are a lot of things going on in that AR realm, but the biggest one is getting the TriZetto testing completed so that we can really start dropping those bills and hopefully they don't get rejected and creating a bigger mess. Questions on November, December accounts receivable?
I have one quick question that I forgot to ask at Finance Committee the other day, Steve, and that is regarding our outstanding AR and Mariah oncoming. Is she full-time now? Is she employed with us full-time, or are we still doing the part-time thing and paying someone from Health Tech? paying contract labor charges there?
Yep. Well, that's more than one question, but that's okay.
Sorry, I tend to have them in multiples.
Multi-part question, we'll put it that way. So Mariah was initially planning to work part-time, but she's been working 45 to 50 hours a week. So and most of that's later in the afternoon and evening. Some of it's at 4 o'clock in the morning. So she's a workaholic. The plan is in February, she'll be on site. Because right now she's working a lot of that time remotely, but she'll be on site working from 7 to 3:30. Sometime in February, we haven't pinned down the exact date yet. We do have contract labor as well with Health Tech and also with other third-party vendors. Mostly on the coding side for the third-party vendor. In Record Time, I think, is the name of the company that's helping us with some of the coding. And then Health Tech has several individuals that are helping with the billing, both on the old Epic with the University of Utah. So we still have $1.7 million outstanding in accounts receivable there. Plus they're helping us on the Ocean Epic side as well. That completely answer your question, or is there,
Yes.
did I miss a part?
Do you anticipate that that need will be ongoing for several more months? Or once we have a dedicated RCM director and things are kind of cleaned up, will we need to continue down that road?
With the backlog that we have and the limited training that was done prior with the staff that we have, I think there may be a need for it to continue for, I can't say 6 months, 3 months. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
The other thing that we'll need to consider going forward is when we get our critical access designation, we will probably continue to bill as a PPS hospital because we can't afford another interruption in the billing process and getting payments. Once we get our critical access number, so there's a difference between getting certified and actually getting our number, just like we've had the delay with PPS.
Sure.
We'll get a new CCN number as a critical access hospital. Once we get that number, then we can go back and void those claims that we submitted and got paid, and then re-invoice or rebill as a critical access hospital. The reimbursement difference for Medicare will be significant. And we're only talking about Medicare and Medicaid. So we're not talking about all the commercial other payers. We're talking about Medicare and Medicaid.
Sure.
With keeping that in mind, we'll also put a burden on our billing and collection staff. So I think that will probably contribute to keeping them on, maybe depends on how long it takes Medicare to issue that new CCN number. How long a period that is. Is that going to be 45 days or is it going to be the answer to that? In my experience in Taos, it took, while they committed to 45 days, it took more like, so I have a tough time putting a lot of trust in what an initial estimate might be. And I don't know that I could give you a valid estimate from my own experience.
That's understandable. I am sorry to have so many questions. It just relates to our overall financial stability at the moment, which I'm incredibly anxious about.
So if I could add to what Steve said, there are two additional points. One, U of U is making a lot of noise about wanting us off their system. And they are saying potentially as early as April this year, they're wanting us off. So not only are we wanting to focus on that money because it's old, and the older it gets, the less likely it is we're going to be able to collect it, but we can't be in a position where we don't have access to the system and we just do sort of balance forwards into the new system. So a lot of the emphasis from the health tech people is on the U of U balances. Yeah. So that's one big variable. And then while the growth in the AR from one perspective is a bad thing, I look at that as the cash that we will be using over the next 4 to 6 months. That as we get the billing issues fixed, that this catch up that we're going to be able to do is going to give us cash that otherwise we wouldn't have had. In a sense, you could say we already would have collected. So on the one hand, having the AR be as big as it is a bad thing. On the other hand, it's almost like a savings account for us. And so having the emphasis on bringing that money in to address our day-to-day cash flow was part of my rationale in saying, yep, this makes sense to do it now.
Okay.
And the rate that we're paying is a very reasonable rate. It's not what we would have to pay a normal traveler type person.
So Bill kind of touched on the cash flow. I asked Michelle to update the cash flow forecast earlier today. And we currently have $1.2 million in our operating accounts. And assuming some of this backlog starts coming in within the next couple of weeks, we have a pretty steady increase in our cash balances over the next 3 months. I hesitate to project much further out than that because it becomes unreliable. Even going out 3 months is pretty long given our current situation.
Sure.
Once we start dropping those bills, I can get a better feel for which cash is actually going to come in on a monthly basis. Medicare does pay a clean claim between 7 and 14. So we can start dropping those claims. The money should start coming in, provided they get adjudicated as a clean claim.
And the number, the 1.2, is higher than previous
Right.
cash flow projections.
Yeah. I've been working with Michelle to try to improve this model that we use, and during the summer while DZA was in, and even previous to that, some of the estimates on the bank balances were incorrect. So we've adjusted that bank balance, and it was pretty significant. It was understated by over $1 million.
So this is since last week.
Yep.
So like the current week, like 130 instead of 329, it's 1.2 million.
So your questions at the end last week kind of prompted me to dig into this a little bit further. I just couldn't believe our operating account balances were that low, and sure enough, they weren't. It was just a balance that the way the models structured was carried forward over instead of being corrected to what the true bank balances. And the other part of your question was, and we'll get into the budget in just a minute here, was how are we going to sustain this? And Bill touched on that too. It's the $11 million in receivables that allow us to improve our cash flow in spite of what the budget is like.
Okay.
Which, as we know,
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So I didn't ignore your question.
No,
I did look into it, and
Thank you. I
actually
appreciate
thought
that.
about it at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, duh, it's the $11 million in
The $11
receivables
million.
that we have. That's
Okay.
how we
Okay.
cover that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can,
Okay, thanks. I just, the number of things that have come up just in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, and I hope that I will be able to bring some clarity to some of those questions when I do my update and my report. Excellent questions, and obviously we're concentrating on the areas that count and that are the most important things right now as a focal point in terms of revenue cycle. So when it gets to my update, I hope that I can add a lot of clarity to some of the questions I've been hearing.
Okay, thank you, Dom.
Sure thing.
Shall I move on to the budget?
Let's do.
Please.
So I presented this in the same format as the income statements previously, but in this, on the left-hand side, I have our actuals for the first 6 months. And on the right-hand side, my projected budget for the remaining 6 months of the year. A lot of changes were necessary. The original budget was very optimistic in a couple of different areas. One was inpatient volumes. We were actually fairly close. The original budget estimated 3 patient average length of stay. I'm sorry, average daily census of 3. We're averaging closer to 2.5, a little under 2.5. One of the biggest differences was the reimbursement on those patients because of the timing of when we expected to be critical access versus being a PPS hospital. In a PPS hospital, you can be an inpatient for 6 days, but your diagnosis related code or DRG grouping, it determines what your payment is, and it's a fixed amount, no matter how many days you're in the hospital. You're in for 1 day, you're in for 6 days. For the same DRG, you get the same payment amount. And I'll use pneumonia as an example. That DRG has a weight of about 1.1. So if your DRG rate is $5,000 for a weight of 1, you get about $5,200, no matter if you're there 1 day or 6 days. As a critical access hospital, get paid on a per diem on the inpatient. They get paid a given amount per day, which can vary year to year depending on what your costs are. But I'm guessing it's really a guess at this point how much will be paid. I actually put some numbers down, but if we get paid $4,500 per day, which I think is a reasonable assumption, that's significantly more than the $5,200. For a 3-day stay, that's going to be $13,500 versus $5,200 at PPS hospital. So that's where critical access really makes a big difference on the inpatient side. It also makes a big difference on the outpatient side, as we're getting it paid at percent of charges. Fees that a PPS. In lab and imaging, those rates are extremely, where you're averaging maybe 25 to 30% of charges for reimbursement. As a critical access hospital, I would expect that we'll get at least 50% of charges. And my estimates in here are actually a little bit higher than that. I think I'm using 62 or 64% as a reimbursement. And again, I did some rough estimates. Hopefully those get refined over the next couple of weeks as we work with Ed Bailey to do a interim or a preliminary cost report, which would identify more specifically what the rate should be as a critical access hospital. Anyway, sorry I went down that rabbit hole. Going back to the budget here, those were some of the assumptions that we would be critical access sooner than what actual is going to happen. Also, the discount rates or the contractual allowances as a PPS hospital significantly understated, in my opinion, at 17 and 23% instead of 50, 60% and higher, 70% maybe for the inpatient activity. So those are changes that really impacted this. The other big change was in clinic volumes. So there was a big increase expected in clinic volumes, and the only explanation that I've been able to identify was that would be related to becoming rural healthcare clinic instead of standalone clinic as we have. That confuses me because gross revenues would not change based on that designation, only what your reimbursement. But this was at the gross revenue level in the budget. So that was a big disconnect for me that I couldn't quite find any pieces to support that. Again, the same discount rates were very aggressive for the clinic, using a 27% discount rate versus what historically for the clinic has been about 44 or 45%. So to use something less than what history indicated confused me. I think that again was related to the Rural Health Clinic expectation. So we also had the adjustments that I talked about earlier, the $1.3 million for the unbillable Medicare and Medicaid, which we had to put in to the actuals, which flows through for the entire year budget. So all of those things that I just talked about resulted in a net patient revenue change decrease of just under $10 million. So most of that in the contractual allowances, but a chunk of it also in the gross revenues for the clinic volumes that have already covered. Any questions on the operating revenue before I move on to expenses? No, that's a lot, and it's a lot of detail. And I spent a lot of time agonizing over it and revising and just trying to refine it the best I could based on my knowledge and previous experience working with Medicare. Not Medicaid so much, but it's a much smaller piece of the puzzle here than what Medicare is. Just about 45% of our gross revenues, both inpatient and outpatient and clinic, so in all three areas. Payer mix or? I don't think the payer mix was way far off in the detail that I've seen in the budget worksheets. I think the payer mix was actually pretty close. All right, on the expenses, a lot of the expenses I based on run rate and then a few other things that I'm aware of or changes that we anticipate. So on salaries and wages, the run rate is actually less than what was previously budgeted. But benefits were overstated, and most of that was in the health insurance side, the employee health. Kind of have a different plan here than what I'm used to, but the maximum amount was forecast in the budget for every month, which resulted in benefits being about 46% salaries and wages, which I thought, whoa, that's really high. Where's that coming from? Because typically should be in the low to mid 20s. Wyoming retirement makes it a little more challenging to get down to that 20% level, but our actuals to date have been running about 33% of salaries and wages. So I was able to reduce the benefit budget by using that kind of year-to-date run rate. I should have mentioned this at the very beginning. I didn't. This is a very high level Steve's forecast budget. Department managers and others were not included in revising this budget. I thought time was of the essence, and to go through a more extensive process would have delayed getting this completed in a timely fashion. So I relied on my knowledge and experience, and I hope that's okay. A big change that we had is contracted physicians. The ARC contract has already been eliminated, so that's about $285,000 a month contract. So that's a pretty significant decrease. There's an offset to that in salaries and wages to be higher. I have to call that PV.
But not a one-to-one.
But not a one-to-one. Thank you, Bill. Contract labor has been coming down gradually, but we still have a significant amount of that in long-term care facility, especially. Supplies were adjusted based on the run rate. Not a big number there. Maintenance and repairs similar. Included in maintenance and repairs are service agreements. So a lot of our equipment is new. We don't have a service agreement. In a year, 2 years, those service agreements will be coming in. Have to be added. at that. Utilities were up a little bit based on the run rate. Purchase services, again on run rate. Some things like the Ocean monthly fees, which are in the $40,000 range, were not included in the original budget. So there were some increases, those expenses as well. I've added the interest expense that we talked about earlier that had been overlooked. There was some interest expense, but it was only on the Series A portion of the bonds and not the Series B portion of the bonds, which is a bigger part of the expense. Depreciation, we've talked about already, is also quite a bit higher. And then other expenses, which is kind of a conglomerate of everything else that doesn't have its own category, up a little bit for the run rate. So I believe for the year, total expenses will, for the entire year, total expenses will be up a little bit. If you look at the variance on operating expenses for the first 6 months, the variance was $1.3 million. The variance for the total year is 1.6. But it wasn't a whole lot more in operating expenses. And if you consider just the depreciation and interest expense alone, that is the majority of increases are. Because we had the decrease in salaries, wages, and benefits. Any questions through the operating expenses? So we have operating income, which is a very ugly number of $19 million loss for the entire year. Year to date, that's, again, most of that is up in that revenue and contractual allowance, that operating revenue. Most of that change takes place. Then we have grants, mill levy income, which is also down from what was previously budgeted, but we have a lot of those grants and foundation income and other donations that have kind of offset most of that decrease in levy income. So our total bottom line, excuse me, makes that 19 million not seem quite as bad, but it's still a $10 million loss projected for the year. Again, about $10 million worse than the previous budget. Again, lower gross revenues, higher contractual allowances are almost at $10 million. Looking at that EBITDA line, loss of almost $5 million versus what would previously been projected at 11 million. Cover that. Just starting the process of the 2027 budget. But this is where I landed on the revised budget for. Well, that's a lot of detail. Happy to answer whatever questions I can.
I appreciate the work into preparing all. But it is
It's hard to
work into
present.
it. Yeah, well, I mean, to some extent, we knew, we just didn't have the detail.
Yeah.
You know, we knew
And-
what things would actually look like, but
And typically I try to do things on a conservative basis. I wasn't as conservative in preparing this as I like to be. And Bill asked me, the finance committee, I think on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you fall in 5 being very conservative, 1 aggressive, and I said 2.5. Did I say 2? I think I said 2.
You
2.5 would have been in the middle, and I think I went to 2.
Yeah.
So I'm a little more aggressive typically. And I hope that we can achieve what's here. A lot of it can change based on what the critical access reimbursement happens to be.
And that's an important point. This doesn't include any critical access impact, correct?
No, it does.
It does,
It does, starting in February.
February.
assuming
Right.
that we
Right.
get that.
And-
info.
and
Perfect.
Every day that goes by that we wait for CMS, wait for our critical access survey, costs us just on the Medicare side about $11,000. in reimbursement.
Annualized, that is,
4 million,
just over.
just over 4 million on an annual basis. So
But
not,
when-
not just for this budget period, but annually it's about.
But we're hoping, anticipating for a survey next week,
So I'll talk about that more in my report.
so we can stop.
That was a question that came up in the finance committee, so answered it there, I should present it. That's a rough estimate. Hopefully it's can get that survey done, we can start recognizing sooner.
So with the detail that Steve's provided and the rationale behind his assumptions, we believe that this is a much more accurate depiction of the financial situation of the organization. And so we would recommend board adopt this as a revised budget for 2026.
It seems to me, just in listening to all of the procedures and processes that are being put in place and numbers that you have put extensive work into here, Steve, that we have a pretty good idea of where we know where the losses are at. We know what we need to work on, and we're getting all of the proper processes in place to address them. Correct? And
And I'll talk a lot more about that in my report.
okay, I will stop getting ahead of myself.
We need more revenue.
This is something you're.
We need to increase revenue. I mean, I felt like
Yep,
expenses.
there's a couple of ways to do that, and one is getting that critical access designation, and the other is volumes.
Volumes.
We really have no control.
Whether it's clinic or hospital or,
Marketing.
I mean, long-term care is full, so we can't
Yeah.
point any fingers at Don
Cap-
back there, but.
Capturing the business that's
46.
leaving the county.
Yeah,
I mean, we need
yeah.
to, I don't know how we do that, you know.
So I'll go ahead and I'll talk a little bit about this. So the plan that we have to change how we cover the hospital portion of the business, the hospitalist model and recruiting doctors, that will create capacity. And it's that capacity that we can look to generate additional volume. So the overall proposal would save around 350,000 from the current expense that we have, the hospitalist model. We'll be able to actually we'll be able to recognize the revenue from inpatients that right now is sort of bundled in the overall cost of the hospitalist model. And then we'll have the equivalent of 2 additional FTEs in the clinic. The salaries already having been covered in the model. So as we think of volume, we have to have capacity so that as people who are used to getting their care out of town want to transition here, we have to be able to give them options. And so this model, in my opinion, is a huge piece of having that capacity. The challenge is we need 12 to 18 months for the dust to settle and all the impacts of that to settle in. And so this comes back to the $11 million and the amount of cash that we have so that we can survive until we start to see some of the benefits of the changes that are currently being planned.
And just to clarify, the $11 million, that's net accounts receivable. That's not the gross.
No.
That's the amount we expect to collect. The gross is much higher than that.
You have the updated cash flow statement on here or?
No,
No,
Okay.
You just got that today.
I just got it.
Would you, did you send it?
Yeah.
out?
that'll be- Our
So let me speak to that. So the cash flow forecast does not include any additional draw requests. So we're at 7.5 million. We've got 2.5 million available to us. assuming that you approve the budget, then I will plan to schedule a meeting with the Bank of Jackson to talk about not only the 7.5, but the 2.5. Because the 2.5 potentially adds to the time frame that we have to survive. So if we can have a model that allows us to service the $10 million line of credit. So I'll work under the assumption that we do at some point draw down the additional 2.5. That will add to the window we have to survive until all of this other stuff kicks in. That's one piece of it. The big unknown in my mind is the rural health transformation money. So depending on how much of that they make available to us sooner than later, and how much of it isn't tied to new programs, but funding existing programs, underwriting existing programs. That's the big unknown in my mind that I can't plug into any plan, because there's enough money there that they could address the crisis hospitals in the state. But it's just whether or not they choose to pursue that model. I mean, I'm sure you've heard some estimates say that they're going to try and save almost 3/4 of the money. So if they're only dispersing 25% of the money and they're doing it across these 4 different priorities, it's a completely different story than if they were to say half the money and disperse half the money. So we'll have a lot more information in the next couple of months as it relates to that piece of the puzzle.
Steve. Michelle.
Rain, her team.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. And as Bill mentioned, this is an action item. Vice budget should.
I would move to approve the revised budget for the fiscal year 2025, 2026.
Second. Any further discussion, questions? Action. I'll ask motion to approve the revised budget for 2025-26. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And all right. That puts us at the end of our committee reports and to the beginning of our leadership reports. First leadership report is CNO with Vicki. Vicki, come on up. Before you start, I know Lane's on here and I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Lane for her time spent. I know it's coming to an end here very shortly. So Lane, thanks for your help getting us where we're at. Hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I know you guys are going to do great things.
Thank you. Vicki will do a great job.
Yes, agree.
Shoes to fill. I will say that. I have for you in my presentation, I have part of the quality and performance improvement report, but this is the whole report thing for you to look at. And while Jan is getting the PowerPoint up, I have an updated IV pump quote that I need to have signed. It's actually saving us $4,100 with the updated quote. You signed it previously.
This is the one we just did a month or so ago
Yep, and
Okay.
so this is a new one
with a lower number.
with a lower number.
Let me just sign that right now.
Next slide, Jan. So if you remember, Lane talked about that we will report on people, quality, growth, service, and finance during our report. Starting with people recognition, we have started a certificate of appreciation to staff, and Tanya Obermeyer received a certificate from Dr. Berger with her persistence in communication being important factors in validating clinical concerns of the team, but also helping the patient realize and feel reassured about the importance of transferring and completing the workup. Ellen received a certificate from a patient's family member who commended them on the care that she gave in the ER, showing extreme compassion and professionalism. We had some, oh, next slide, Jan, please. Sorry. We had neonatal resuscitation training in January. The flight team from Primary Children's and a NICU nurse came and gave us that training. And so this is just some of the pictures from our training. Slide, Jen, please. We're in neonatals, there's they're teeny, so medication doses are teeny, and therefore they taught us some nuances on drying up meds for those neonatal patients. And we learned to start umbilical IVs. And I did not get a total number of our staff that we got trained, so that's why the number sign's still there, and I'm sorry about that. Starting an umbilical IV was very interesting. For hospital staffing, we had 3 new RN hires, 2 full-time and 1 part-time. And we hired 3 new ED registration specialists. So we have filled all of our ED registration specialist positions at this time and have completed our transition from needing 2 people in that area to just 1 person. We have our agency CNA contract ending next week, which leaves us with 1 agency contracted staff in the RN position. We do have the job postings up and are active for both med-surg and ED RNs currently. Contract labor costs decreased from 100,000 a month to 43,000. 43, I can't, in December. It's better number, let's just put it that way. This is the quality scorecard. The first metric is patient safety. We scan our patients as well as the medications to make sure that they match and we're giving the right medication at the right time. And the next one is imaging, and we have improved with that. It was noted in our survey that the contrast protocol was not being scanned into the patient record. So we implemented the chart reviews of those records. And as you can see, we have been able to improve that metric. Survey also noted that we were not compliant with the standard of notification of a patient's primary care physician and family. So we instituted review of those records as well, and to make sure we are meeting the requirement, and we have improved in that area as well. And then you have the rest of the scorecard at your leisure. Next, Jen, please. Thank you. For service, I think everyone is aware we are a level 5 trauma receiving facility in the state of Wyoming, and we have been since about 2009. Our designation did transfer from the clinics to the hospital, and this is our letter showing that they did that transition for us. This is just some of what we've heard back on what our patients are saying. Exceptional care at our new hospital, kind, thoughtful, given by the medical team, premier small hospital for our small community. Commending the nurses who cared for the daughter in the ER, showing extreme compassion and professionalism. This is the one that nominated Ellen for certificate. And from Roger McManus, the Marvelton Town Council member, he stated he felt like he was getting VIP treatment in the hospital and is so glad that it was there and he didn't need to drive. Top-notch care right at home, which is what we are striving to do. This is the quarterly report for EMS. Just shows their 911 calls, transfers, standby, fire calls, and special events that they covered. And for the hospital, the total number of inpatient days was 330. Average length of stay was 3.60, and this is for August 4th through the end of December. Total admissions of 91. In the emergency department, we saw 1,260 patients. We had 169 transfers, and of those 1,260, 81 of those were admitted to the facility. We have a new service with Intermountain Telehealth Primary Children's. We are doing pediatric telehealth. We have acute care available, or acute care providers available to our ED physicians to consult with them if needed, and be adding a hospitalist later down the road as we get our EMR figured out and how to get them access to the EMR, and we'll be able to keep pediatric patients by having the hospitalist available to us to assist us with that. The pediatric consults are going to be available 24/7, 365, and we're really excited about that. And then we are also working on getting with the guidelines, which is an AHA stroke recognition program. We're starting to collect data, and we have to be a critical access hospital first before we can apply to be a part of the program, but we're starting this now. Any questions for me? Close. Close.
It's a computer issue. It's holding it up.
It's in.
Yes.
Great report. Thank you.
Yeah, really good report. Good job, Vicki. Right, Dom. Health Tech report.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to try and keep mine as short and sweet as I can, although there are a number of points that I really think are important for me to communicate tonight. The first thing I wanted to say was, Lane, thank you very much for all your hard work. You're an absolute champion, and we greatly appreciated what you've done. And Vicki, all the very best. It's great to have you in your position, and I wish you all the best. We are here to give you all the support and help that you need, so please don't hesitate. Just looking at some of those slides, I think that it's important for us to remind ourselves of the fact that the hospital only opened pretty recently, and when I look at total inpatient days of 330 days, emergency department at 1260. I think that it's congratulations to everybody, and I know that things are tough, but at the end of the day, we have a going concern. We have a hospital that's out of the gates, and I think you can all be very, very proud of what's been achieved so far. And I think that the future is going to be tough, but I think that the future is also going to be very, very rewarding based on what the original intentions were for the board to open this hospital. So I think we just need to keep sight of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and congratulations and thank you to everybody for all their hard work in the hospital, because I think you're all doing your very best and you're doing a great job. Firstly, just my apologies for arriving to the meeting late. I flew in from Salt Lake City tonight. They haven't had any snow for, I don't know how long, and then just before my plane took off, the snow decided to start arriving, and they had to de-ice the plane. So my apologies for that. That is definitely not the way I like to behave in terms of getting to meetings on time. In terms of my updates, let me just start off with a thank you to everyone who took the time to submit an evaluation on Greg Brickner. We've now received 7 total evaluations, and I'll be debriefing Tanya on this within the next few days. And I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to do that. That's an important matter and an important item, and I just want everybody to know that we are taking it seriously, and Derek and I will be discussing this on our Friday executive team meeting. My next item for an update is our GPO and supply chain update, for which I've just received some pretty good news from Jeff, who runs our supply chains division. And he told me today that the dietary program analysis for Sublette will be saving over 30% on the Cisco food purchases by moving to the health tech contract platform. This is an incredible savings and includes both a hospital and heritage nursing home business. I will be supplying, or will be providing, a better update and a more comprehensive update on supply and GPO to Bill. We will be having a meeting within the next week so we can really get a handle on dates, because we're at a point where we really need to understand what our dates are going to look like. Third thing is we have a CEO forum in-person meeting on the 10th of March for all of our CEOs, all of our hospital CEOs in Phoenix. These are always very, very productive. So looking forward to that, just as an update. The other thing is our annual conference. We were planning on doing the annual conference in Charleston, and I've actually just recently in the last week pulled the plug on that. We're looking for a new venue because the hotel costs were just completely out of control. We were looking at somewhere around $600 a night. That's with a block booking. So more to come on that, but I'm revisiting that. We will not be going to Charleston, but the dates are still set. We still will be doing the conference between the 4th and the 7th of October. Another important, really important item for the board and the trustees is that we've just recently done a pretty big update to our trustee manual, which is a very, very comprehensive manual. I'm going to be sending that out to Tanya shortly, so Tanya can distribute that to everybody. I think you'll find it very, very advantageous and very, very useful. Just a reminder about our educational and marketing areas that we put out on a continual basis. You know, you can find our old and past webinars on our website, and they're both in PowerPoint form as well as video form. So I just encourage everybody and anybody who wants to gain extra education to please have a look at those. We have just finalized our January to June webinar calendar, and I'll be sending that out to Bill to distribute to everybody in the hospital as well. We have some really, really good webinars planned for in the next 6 months. In the next month, we will also be hosting a status management teams meeting with all of our hospitals, and that's going to be, the objective of that is going to be to share best practices on observation and inpatient statuses, a problem area that a lot of our hospitals are experiencing. So I think that will be very, very useful to those that want to attend. And then the last part of my update, I want to talk about revenue cycle, if you don't mind. And I know that it's very, very important. I don't typically jump into the weeds on this kind of stuff. I'm far more strategically focused, but I do want to get into these in the weed stuff because I think it's really, really important based on on where we're at right now. Tanya asked the question earlier on with regards to, who's helping, how long will they be helping for, etc. We added a revenue cycle specialist on the 12th of December. Her name was Sarah. She's one of our team members. And in the last week, we've added another 2 members as well. And the reason for this is just, in the continual conversations and meetings that we have, both with Bill and with Steve, and I mentioned this in the November board meeting. We obviously want to concentrate heavily on this old AR, the U of U stuff. And I know Bill mentioned earlier on with regards to an April cutoff date from Epic on the U of U. I definitely want to address that. I want to have a discussion, and I'm going to be talking to Bill about that tomorrow or the next day to see how we can extend that deadline. But I will say that I'm extremely happy with the progress that we are making. And I wanted to just dig into some of the specifics with the board so that you can understand where we're at and the progress that we are making. The first thing I wanted to just mention is, obviously there are always going to be problem areas. 2 specific problematic areas which we've identified or our revenue cycle team has identified, which are really, really important, that I wanted to just communicate to you and be transparent about. We found that accounts that are being held due to lack of provider credentialing at the date of service and/or providers that were subsequently credentialed, but Sublette had claim hold in place and claims were never released. So that's something that we've seen and that we're addressing firsthand. And then accounts where insurance and payments have been issued but never posted to accounts. So those are sort of the 2 big problematic areas from our side right now that we are addressing. So we're looking at, the older AR. We've put on the extra team members because we need to get that money in the door. We've spoken about that, and we are now making really good progress. So I'd like to just go through some stats and some data points, specifically, as I said, in the weeds, unfortunately, but I think it's important that you understand this. So I'm going to be talking about some data points between the 1st of December last year and the 28th of January this year. And I'm going to just highlight a few of these. Claims error. On the 1st of December, we're looking at somewhere in the region, I'm going to just do round figures, somewhere in the region of 2,000 as a transaction count, close to $400,000. As of the 28th of January, that claims error number has been reduced to 1,300, a difference of somewhere in the region of 767 claims, and an overall reduction of impacts of 36% and 123K. The next item I wanted to mention was claims with open denials. The original transaction count on the 1st of December was 4,400 transactions, a total amount of 929K. That has been reduced from 4,400 to 2,100, and a reduction of 538K. These are open denials that were sitting unworked, so that has been reduced by 52%. Outstanding insurance debits, a total transaction counts of approximately 11,000, a total amount of $2 million. That count has been reduced from 11,000 to 7,000 and reduced from 2 million to 1.2, a realization of $789,000. So that insurance balance has been reduced significantly, and it's actually been reduced by 63%. Steve mentioned earlier on the total AR is at 1.7, which was at 2.7. Active AR is down 39%. Pre-AR is down 99%. So I'm very, very pleased to say that we're making good progress. The 3 collectors specifically that we've put onto the team, which we've pulled out of other hospitals, are very experienced and they are very fast and they're very, very good at what they do. And I have 100% confidence that they're going to do what needs to be done for Sublette. So I just wanted to give you that top line. As I said, it's a bit in the weeds, but I think it's really, really important for you to understand exactly what we are doing. Obviously, we're working very, very closely with Steve as well as the revenue cycle team. Then in terms of Ocean, just an update there. Oh, the one thing I wanted to mention on that old AR, which we've got to close off and we've got to get on top of, what we don't know right now is we don't have a data feed with regards to the cash posting. So I gave you all of those numbers, but I actually at this point can't tell you exactly what has actually flowed through into the bank account. So we're working on that together with Steve's department, and we hope to be on top of that pretty soon, within the next few days, put it that way. Then in terms of Ocean, and obviously that's our new AR, I have a monthly snapshot there with regards to cash posting and remits. November, we had 496K, December 650K, and we only have numbers up until the 19th of January, but we're expecting that to be close to $1 million for the month of January. So, just overall, I think things are moving in a really, really good direction. And, I will say that if I compare things overall to where we were, 4 or 5 months ago, I think we have the necessary people in place right now. We have very, very strong individuals. There's been some very, very good training and mentoring. And I feel positive about where we sit right now in terms of how we move forward. And I think that that's really important for the board and the trustees to hear that from me. I know you're hearing it from others in the hospital and other parts of the leadership team, but I just want to state that fact that from a health tech point of view, we're feeling good about where we sit right now, and things are positive. The last thing that I wanted to mention with regards to the new budget is that I'm really, really glad and very pleased that we decided to relook that budget. I was very, very concerned when I looked at the budget, and I go back to a few months ago when I suggested the rebudget change. I definitely completely agree with Steve with regards to the census. Although it wasn't way out, it was definitely out, and just 0.5 or a 1 point makes a big difference. The length of stay was absolutely problematic, and I'm just pleased that we made that decision. I'm very pleased that the board has signed off the new budget, because I think we're in a situation right now where we're looking at a realistic picture. So I think that's really, really important. And then the last thing I wanted to just say was, Bill, with regards to the Rural Transformation Fund, obviously we're working with and talking to all of our hospitals in the last, this is my 4th or 5th board meeting in the last 8 days. And, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, and actually my last board meeting was with a Wyoming hospital as well. Regardless of the amount of money that we're hoping to get, we obviously can't, we obviously shouldn't and can't count on that. But from what I'm hearing, we're not going to see anything hit our bank accounts probably till somewhere in the area of May this year at the earliest. So I just wanted to mention that, and I think I've covered almost everything that I wanted to cover for tonight. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dom. Does anyone have questions for Dom? I really appreciate the data. I know that you don't want to get into the weeds with some of that stuff, but it's really helpful to hear on my end and I think on our end, especially considering that we're hearing regarding budget right now. So thank you for that. And thanks also for the message at the beginning of your report. I find myself sometimes getting to celebrate the things and the wins that we continue to have. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. It's just so important. You know, everybody in the hospital is working so hard. The board is working so hard. And as I said at the beginning, and I mean that with all sincerity, you know, we were months and months ago, we were talking about opening a hospital. We now have a going concern, and you know, everybody's put in a lot of hard work, and everybody puts in a lot of hard work on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. And I do think that it's important that, you know, you celebrate, you know, every single win that you can. And Tonya, that's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Right. Bill Peck, would you like to give us a CEO report?
So I'm going to try and go fast. It's been a while since we've met, so I have lots of things I want to make sure you're up to date on. So I sent you an email saying that we had successfully hired a new HR director. We'll check that. Sunday evening, we got notice that she's withdrawing her acceptance. Issues with her husband's job, mother-in-law that went into hospice. She just decided now was not the time to move, so we're starting over. So we're looking at all options. I had a meeting with Sharon earlier this week to try and accelerate how we do this. When I talk with Dom later this week, I'll be seeing any resources they might be able to offer. Right now is really an important time for us because we are building the new HR IT system. And so not having that, I mean, the team is great. They're doing the preliminary work, but it really would be good to have, even if it's an interim person, someone to guide us through setting up the new system. The equity pay adjustments that we talked about at the last meeting have been completed, and the employees are very appreciative that their pay has been right-sized. But as you might have guessed, I'm hearing that we need to look at pay equity between the nursing areas. So this is both within Heritage Home and within the hospital, but then also comparing how we pay between and then RNs in the clinic. So on this one, I plan to do a lot of research to really understand exactly what the issues are and what our response needs to be. So stay tuned for more information on that one. We've already talked about the great job that Mariah is doing. So I'm not going to hammer that one anymore, but I do want to mention a name I haven't heard, Margaret from Health Tech. She's been very involved, but very supportive. She attends almost all of the OCHAN meetings that we have, and she has helped coordinate those external resources that we've talked about. So appreciate her work. Our primary MRI tech has given us her notice. Yeah, that's one that really hurts. She's been very good about giving us notice. So until early March, we reviewed what we did when we recruited her, and the effective tool was sending out postcards. So we buy the list of all of the radiology techs, and then we send out personalized postcards. So that's what we're working to do. That was far more effective than normal advertising in journals or recruiters. This one I'm assuming is a green light. We currently have a PTO donation policy. Policies of this kind are common, but they're difficult to administer. One of the biggest issues being employees approaching other employees asking them to donate. So I need PTO, and I come to you and say, I know you've got a lot, I want you to give me some. And that puts the one employee at in a difficult position. So given the PTO policy limits issues that we have, I think we need to suspend this policy until we get the PTO limits, because what I don't want people to do is play games. I've got, 100 extra hours, so I'm going to give it to somebody. That's not the intent of the policy. So rather than allowing it to be misused in any way, I think we need to suspend it. And so unless you tell me otherwise, I'm assuming the light is green, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to suspend so not take it away, but I'm going to suspend it until we get all the PTO limit issues figured out. Another one that I'm assuming is a green light, our efforts to recruit third-year residents hasn't borne any fruit. We got into the game too late for this year's class. So we're continuing to work on second-year residents. Heaven forbid we're still recruiting a year from now. But I plan to bring in at least one, if not two recruiters. And as is in the delegated authority, none of these will be retained. I don't like retained. So these would be normal contingency contracts, but I'm going to move in that direction because we have to get going trying to recruit at least a couple. Because if we don't have at least a couple figured out by this summer, that's going to delay when we can give notice on the Apogee contract. And then it's just this snowball effect. So I really need to get a recruiter in here. So again, based on the new rules under the delegated authority document, I'm assuming the light is green. And then the last thing under people, I want to add my thanks to Lane for the work that she has done. She's completed her on-site service. So she's home now, still working from home. She'll provide remote support to us through the survey. So that will be really important. But thank you so much, Lane. You've made a difference in our lives. Shifting to medical staff, Cassandra Olson will be moving from urgent care same-day program to become one of our ED providers. We've hired one of the two new providers that we need for the revised urgent care same-day clinic schedule. We're working to get that person, Tara Ryan is her name, credentialed. Our offer to the second person was declined. So we've interviewed another candidate. I sent him an email just this afternoon. Want to talk with him about getting a contract and an offer as soon as we can. Within the medical staff, we've started a new incomplete charts report. So we've determined that we have requirements about the timeliness of chart completion, but we don't give feedback. Now, when the doctor or the mid-level signs in, there's information there, but that's not what the doc is focused on. So Christy is doing weekly reports now, and we're breaking down so that they know exactly what their incomplete charts are. This is important not only from a patient care perspective, but timeliness of chart completion is one of the issues that factors into their bonus. So letting them know where they stand improves their ability to earn the bonus. One of the things we heard from the docs when we talked about what are the process things that get in your way of seeing more patients was use of OCH and Epic. So we have done a deal with them. They're going to be sending one of their trainers here. Actually, they're going to be in Marbleton the week of the 16th of February. So they're going to be doing elbow to elbow training with providers. And then we're also looking at additional Epic training for the billing and coding staff. So in an effort to make sure that we're getting full credit for the work that our providers are already doing, there are tools, there's internal education that we have for improvements in coding. And so I approved all the providers to have up to 4 hours of paid time to do these in-services on how do they improve coding. So things that can be coded better include use of time coding, which can better capture a lot of the work that is already being done. Providers can also schedule phone visits when calling patients for clinical management. For the ER, there's a template with documentation of imaging wet reads, talking to EMS, independent interpretation of EKGs. So this is something that volume we're already doing, but we're not getting full credit for it from a billing perspective. That's the idea behind this. The telepeds was already mentioned in Vicky's report. And then just as part of the transition to Dr. McLaren as the ER medical director, he's going to start monthly ER team meetings, the fourth Wednesday of every month. So that's a nice addition. Switching to finance. So talk about our inspection. So we got our critical access license, and then we were waiting on CMS. That could be, I think, our motto. We're waiting on CMS, ... We got a letter earlier this week saying that Noridian had recommended to CMS that we were good for the inspection if our rural location could be validated. It's already been, again, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people have come in, looked around, yep, this is a hospital, you're validated. They wanted, so the regional office finally said, if the local folks are comfortable that we're rural enough, then we're approved for an inspection. So we are scheduled. Christy is betting that they're going to be here tomorrow. She got an email at midnight, or that was sent at midnight. So she thinks they did that because they're coming tomorrow. I think tomorrow's probably too quick. Next week would be great. But who knows?
We're ready either way.
We're ready, right? So our readiness teams are out there. I already told you we got 900,000 in mill levy receipts in December. That was about $500,000 more than we had projected. That's another variable that feeds into our cash being better than we thought it would be. So we've already talked about the additional billers, but we haven't decided what the program will look like, but we're considering offering discounts in an effort to get payment on some of the old money. So if you owe me $1,000 and the likelihood of me collecting it is pretty remote, if I make you a deal that you'll pay half of it and we'll write off the other half, I mean, I'd rather have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. So we're going to make sure that any program that we do is legally compliant, is consistent with our current payer contracts. We have to be careful that by giving you a discount doesn't put us at odds with what we've said as far as discounts and payer contracts. So I'm going to pause for a second. Do you have any concerns about us doing a program like that? You know, clearly the legally compliant Lena will be part of designing this, but I just want to conceptually, are you okay with that?
As opposed to like sending to collections or something like that.
This would be before we would do collections. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
So last July, and I think you already knew about the first part of this, we had a medication error in the Sublette Center, and that resulted in what's called a civil monetary penalty. They have decided that they're done, and this is what we owe them. We've worked through all the possible appeal steps. There really aren't that many. We've worked through all of the fine reduction steps, and that saved us, if I remember, something like 35%. So we have to make the required payment by early in February. I just wanted to close the loop on that topic. Bailey has started work on the clinic options analysis. I had talked about this once before. And Steve mentioned in his finance report that assumptions were that we were going to be a rural health clinic. Well, I want to make sure that we're pursuing the model that is financially most advantageous to us. And at this point, I'm only worried about money. So RHC, rural health clinic, federally qualified health center, FQHC, or provider based. So Bailey has started working on that. And the reason I'm including FQHC has a lot of operational headaches, a lot of governance headaches, but I'm really concerned that our proximity to Jackson is going to make us susceptible to another FQHC wanting to put a satellite program here. And so I see looking at an FQHC as somewhat of a market protection strategy. We may not end up doing it if financially it doesn't make sense for us, but I don't want another clinic coming into town. And so I want to make sure that we sort of preempt if it makes sense for us. And then last thing under finance, we have been working with Bailey On the FY 25 audit, it was already supposed to have been submitted. So we've submitted the required paperwork for an extension, got notified, I forget today, yesterday, that the extension was denied. They think that the reasons we gave them were within our control. So things like our controller being out on maternity leave, that was within our control. And then issues about the remote accounting firm DZA not providing requested information, that was within our control. So we're going to continue to try and get an extension. We're going to appeal the denial. But as of today, they consider us to be non-compliant as it relates to timely submission of last year's annual audit. Just as an aside, when I was in Gallup, we were 3 years behind on audits. So to be a month and a half,
That's not an
I don't,
abnormality.
yeah.
So,
They were late last year by several months, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were late with our.
they were, so
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's a bit alarming, but if it's,
And then I shift to the miscellaneous section. And this first one is one of the action items on the agenda. So selling some of our vehicles. I've worked with Tyler to look at all of our rigs and determine, do we need them or don't we? Are we using them or don't we? Are they in good shape, safe to be used? We've come up with two that we're really not using. So one is an old F-350 van, and the other is an out-of-service ambulance. Neither of these are going to bring in much money, but we want to get them off of our insurance and out of our parking lot. So because it's a disposal of an asset, we need to have board approval. So I don't know what we're going to get. We're going to work through, I've already touched base with Lena on this one, make sure that if we have to go through any sort of an open process, we follow the rules. But we want to get rid of these two rigs. And so I'd ask your permission to do that.
you need a formal motion.
Yes, please.
Right now.
Let's just take care of it while we're at it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jameson. We have a motion.
A second.
And a second. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor of the motion on the table to dispose of those vehicles? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. So this is going to just really lift your spirits. As we were doing code practice recently, we found that our overhead paging system, which was installed according to design specs, is inadequate. There are parts of the building where you can't hear. And so that is really a safety issue. So when you're paging out for a code and some of the people can't hear it. So as a starting point, we're going to issue an RFP to see if someone could come in and take what we've got and then add to it so that the building would be entirely covered. At this point, all we're doing is the RFP. So once we get information back, I'll come back to you, but I just want you to know it was a deficiency that was identified, and we're going to try and come up with a solution and see how much that's going to cost us. Work is proceeding on the north wing of the Sublette Center, converted into office. Jan, Steve, and I have moved down. And for me, at least, I love my new office. It's going to be great. Going back and forth between the campuses will be a pain, but it's well worth it. And so we're going to put a pause on moves, anticipating that the surveyors might be here next week. We don't want to be moving offices while the surveyors are. But some people are starting to move themselves. Sue was already moving into her new office this afternoon. So I want to just make sure none of the expense, and it was just paint and stuff like that, but the expense related to the office portion of the project is billed to the foundation. So the guys have started work now on the dormitory part of it, and all of that will be built. So I got a dozen TVs and mounting brackets and stuff like that. All of that's going to be built to the foundation, but this is going to be a good thing. And I would set a goal that by the next Pinedale board meeting, we'd be able to meet at the cafeteria at the Sublette Center. That,
That would be lovely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That would
yeah.
be lovely.
So I don't know if I've reported to you. I know I told the foundation board back in December, we did a one-day leadership development training at the Sublette Center. We did a book club discussion. The book was called Eat That Cookie. And so in light of that name, we decorated Christmas cookies. And then we did a community service project where we went through the 3 wings of the Sublette Center, moving all the beds out, getting ready for the dormitory and office projects. And so a lot of the furniture we are retasking. So it's fun to watch people what they want for their offices. So there are tags all over the place. This goes in my office. The beds we're going to look to sell because a number of the beds are fairly new. So we're going to see if we can get some value out of that. Once we do that, and once all the people have moved, then we'll probably do like a garage sale for employees before we start putting stuff in the dumpster. We're trying an experiment. I don't know if you've heard about this with our phone systems. So during normal business hours, 8 to 5, we're actually having a live person answer the phone. So rather than going directly to the call trees, we have the 3 different numbers going to a live person who then transfers. And so the call center, the scheduling still is happening. So if someone calls in and says, I need to schedule an appointment, it gets transferred. And they are the backups. So we've been doing this now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And we actually can pull data out of the phone system. So we're going to be monitoring it. But this was an effort to try and address one of the concerns that I heard from the county commissioners about not doing such a good job with our phones. And I'm almost done. We have met with 2 different companies exploring the idea of having a helicopter permanently stationed on our helipad. So during inclement weather, the helicopter would be moved to the airport. We're working through what I'll call the due diligence steps, which include verifying how our current helipad insurance would be affected by the model, looking at any upfront costs that might be required. So not to say that it would be, but it wouldn't surprise me that putting a fence around the helipad might be desired. And at some point down the road, having a fuel supply at the helipad. The model actually provides a number of benefits, the first of which would be rapid access to a helicopter. Just today, we had a patient that we needed to fly, and we couldn't do it. We had to transfer him by ground because everywhere else was fogged in, and they couldn't get to us. So with this model, the helicopter would already be here most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. We would also have access to the flight crews when the helicopter isn't flying. And what we've talked about is educational assistance, and then even the possibility of supplementing our staff. So initially I thought, well, the board is going to love this idea, so I'm going to say it's a green light. But I understand that there could be potential political implications from this. So when I was in Taos, the community thought we were transferring way too many people. And so we had a deal from a local helicopter company to put a bird on the pad, and we decided not to, because that would just reinforce the idea that we're flying everybody out. Here, I don't think there's that issue. I think that it would actually be perceived as a good thing. And so I'm not asking you to review the contract. There really isn't going to be much expense other than if we have to do a fence or if we have to do fuel. And I would bring those projects to you for approval. The contract itself is more just about a relationship and services. And so Lena is already involved. Medical staff is already involved. What I'm asking you to approve is the concept that you like the idea of us pursuing getting a helicopter stationed on our pad, and then we can make it happen. So I'll pause there. That's the other action item under my report.
Now, would they be affiliated with a specific other hospital?
They are
or
not.
They transfer to whatever hospital.
So one of the companies that we
Depending.
talked to might have been, the other one is not.
what kind of impact would it have on the flight companies that we have longstanding relationships with? That
So
would be my.
other birds can still come in.
Okay.
So if I'll call it our helicopter is gone, then we definitely would still have someone else coming in. But if someone else needed to fly in, then our bird would be moved off the pad, taken to the airport, and then the pad would be freed up. So so while this would be, I don't view the deal as an exclusive deal. I'd view it as first right of your refusal.
Okay, gotcha.
So since they're here, they get first shot at it. If for whatever reason they can't do it, if the bird's not here, then we have all the other options that are currently available to us. So in that respect, it gives us additional options. It doesn't limit us from any of the ones we have now.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, two quick things from me, if you don't mind. I'm like 95% sure that you are going to have to put a fence around there, based on prior experience with other hospitals. And then just a pretty silly question, but something that I just wanted to ask is there any possibility to make the bird look like a NASCAR Formula One car with Sublette logos all over it?
Well, that's a topic that the medical staff has brought up several times, not the NASCAR piece,
Okay.
but whether there could be some sort of cooperative branding. And
Mhm.
they've on the bird itself, but also potentially on the uniform that staff would have, whether we could have a Sublette County patch on the
Because
jacket.
I think that, I mean, I know it sounds like a silly thing, but I mean, it's really, really important just from a PR point of view.
So though, that's a topic that's already on the list to discuss.
Okay, thank you. I knew you were on top of it.
Critical implications. I mean, people could think that we did, and yeah.
Or why do you have a chopper sitting here when you're telling us you built the hospital so you don't have to fly so many people out? That's what I can hear.
So you saw in the numbers that Vicky presented, we really aren't transferring
Yeah.
as many as you might think.
Yeah.
For those patients that need it and the amount of time that
Yeah,
is being
I-
cut off. like,
Yeah.
From a care perspective, I
There
think
is-
it's
It's
a
great
great
idea.
Yeah.
Great
Is
idea.
there any reason not to do it?
Madam Chair, another perspective is the fact that the hospital district be bringing in a new business to Sublette County based in some operating out of here, and they would do their own business as nothing to do with us. That's all it can. I agree with Tom said, because we have discussed this, getting decals put on advertising. I don't think the perception, it could be more people perceiving as an opportunity. County in the town. Helicopters.
Yeah, very valid. Some real positives I can see. We just would have to be very consistent in our messaging and
As
how we
always.
respond. Yeah. That's
And so the
big
due
plus.
diligence steps are to identify oh, wait a minute, what they might be.
Could be perceived very positive and that we're concerned about the time it takes to get people out of here when they need to get out of here. So it would be,
In addition, you would have a helicopter here if there was an accident down the highway.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
the response time would be
Right.
fantastic.
So again, you don't need to get into the level of the detail of the contract because there isn't going to be huge, even if we have to put a fence up, that's not going to be a huge dollar amount. A fuel tank will be more money because I wouldn't want it above ground. I'd want it in the ground, both for aesthetics, but also for safety. So that would be a bigger project, but the company that we're preferring isn't requiring that up front. Well, the other variable, we're wanting to make sure that this is a commitment at least 1 year. We don't want a helicopter here and then, oh, the volumes aren't what we thought, and then it gets pulled in 3 or 4 months. So we've openly talked about having a short window to cancel the contract on our side and a long window for them to be able to cancel the contract.
Yeah. So for today, you just would like formal action in having the ability to move forward. But should this come to fruition, you will bring us a contract for business purposes
Yep.
in the near future.
Another question, I guess, like, so, you know, search and rescue does a lot, quite a few after call outs. So they would move off the pad, search and rescue helicopter, and then brings.
Yep.
Pilots just send.
Right, the pilot and the crew. And so when Dr. Burnett talks about a new business, those are going to be people that are employed here locally.
I think it could be a real positive.
That's 24.
I don't remember what the rotation is, but it would be more than just 3.
Is there 2 pilots, what's on a helicopter? 4. I didn't know how many people were in it.
Either. He's with them.
Thank you for answering that.
Any more questions from the board? Take action on this item.
Move forward.
Support.
Yes, I would move that we put in approval of air ambulance.
Okay. we have a Second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve support in moving securing air ambulance services? Did I say that right?
Pursuing.
Pursuing, okay. Please signify so.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Good, thank you. So just 2 more quick things, just for fun update. We are working with a company who is interested in producing a documentary that is highlighting the challenges of frontier medicine, at the same time using Sublette County Health as sort of a case study of what one little town is doing. So we've already worked through HIPAA concerns. The company is already doing interviews with members of the medical staff, and medical staff got to say whether or not they wanted to be a movie star or not. But they're planning on the current schedule to be here this summer to start to shoot the footage. So that would be a very cool thing. And then last thing, I wanted to let you know that middle end of next week, I go home again, and this is different. We're actually going on a vacation. So I will be out of pocket for that week. So just so you know, but I'll be back.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Those were the things I wanted to update you on. Happy to answer other questions, and I've got a long list for executive session.
Hey, Bill, sorry, it's Dom again. Sorry to interrupt here. Just one thing with regards to that filming that you spoke about. Are you able to actually look at the final edits before it gets finished?
So
Before
no
they
contract-
actually finish it?
Yeah, no contracts have been signed yet. That's one of the questions that has been asked when we actually get down to doing any formal paperwork. That's one of
Okay.
the. I
just
think
think, I just think it's really, really important that there's some kind of an approval process before they finish actually editing that film, because sometimes the connotations and the message that comes out of those kind of things is not necessarily the ones that are in favor of the hospital. I just want to make sure that, we have a grip on what the actual takeaway message is and that it's a positive one for Sublette.
Dom, I am meeting with their legal team tomorrow, and that is my job, is to protect the hospital district. So absolutely, we are on top of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lena. Thanks very much.
Are you awake? Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Very much. All right. Feeling a recess. Do we want to take one now or do we want to push through? Business, maybe
Let's take a break before executive. Up to you.
Okay, let's get through old business. He's good with that. I might not be able to wait, but we'll see. Okay, old business, approval of payroll and bills. I'll have the check register. Counts. Getting that I can zoom in these documents. We have a motion for
I would move to
approval.
approve payroll and bills for the month of December 20. $3,259,997.16.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve payroll and bills in the amount of $3,259,997.16, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Invoices. We have some invoices related to the SNF side of things. Quarterly assessments. Oh, and a Sublette can, oh, that one's, yeah. I lost track of where I was at. The quarterly assessment and the upper payment limits payment. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? And we've done these a few times now, so. I think we can do it in one. Can we do it in one motion, Lena? Take care of both of these. Is that
Yeah, I
okay?
think so, as long as your motion is very clear. Yep.
Thank you.
Approve the SNF assessment. PL is presented.
Okay. All right.
I'll second
You
it.
got that, Jan? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, concerns? Right, and on the motion to approve the quarterly assessment and the quarterly UPL payment as presented in the agenda, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, new business, board appointments. Need to look at our committees. And I feel like I'm missing one, so please help me out here. We have finance committee, we have credentialing that we need to have board members appointed to, and we have foundation that we need to appoint board members to. What am I missing? We used to have several other committees that we have.
The quality.
Building,
Building.
used to have quality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At some point.
that one we did away with. Building. We don't. I suppose we could leave people on building committee for the planning portion of Bill's assisted living. Might be smart, so. Okay, so first, finance, let's talk finance committee. Do we have any volunteers? Okay. Right. Very comfortable with that. Would anyone else like an opportunity? I'm happy to stay on finance for another year unless someone else would like the opportunity to do so. So,
Kind of like to. Just. curious. Better get on the foundation.
okay. Well, we can leave that one open for just a moment then, and we can talk about foundation first. Maybe that will help sort it out. Credentialing, you guys asked me to come up with 2 board members on a quarterly rotation to take part in the credentialing process. So I did come up with a sort of schedule. You guys tell me if you think this will work for everyone. January through March, first quarter, I put Tanya Ashley, second quarter, Ashley Kenda, third quarter, Kenda Taylor, and fourth quarter, Taylor Jameson, just trying to rotate based on current responsibility. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I had January.
March.
March.
You and I, January, March. So January, March, first quarter will be Tanya and Ashley. Second quarter, Ashley and Kenda. Third quarter, Kenda and Taylor. Fourth quarter, Taylor and Jameson. I can put that in an email too if I need to. Jan. Everybody okay with that? Appointed? Okay.
Jan will send us invites for those out.
The credential. I just for the
Just
board members.
Yeah, just for me to-
The credential.
And how often do they meet?
that's okay.
She doesn't.
And how often do they meet, Jim? Is it the same time each month or is it different?
Yeah, usually.
On Tuesdays, okay.
Showers are.
Okay. All right, foundation. How are you feeling about foundation? Good. Would you like to remain? Okay. It is time for me to step off of that one. I need to let something go. So I have actually spoken to Taylor, unless one of you is interested. You've already done it. Kenda's got her plate full with finance. So I did speak to Taylor and would like to appoint her in my stead, if everyone's comfortable with that. Get back to that. Okay. So that leaves the question, do you want finance and foundation? Okay. I didn't figure
Thank
you
you.
might. So foundation will be Ashley Taylor. And building committee, if we are looking into the future. How does everyone?
I think we need to.
I think it would be good in the planning. Building, okay,
Assisted.
that would be
Think
great
we
with
be
your
assisted
history.
living, mhm.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I love that. Anyone else want to volunteer? Feel strongly about Jameson, that's something you'd be interested in or not?
Do we want to?
I think we had that discussion last year and we decided we wanted to.
We used to have always two, Dave.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say I would go.
Okay. Would you like to be on finance then instead, and I'll step back and I'll stay on building? Okay, I'm great with that. Is everybody else good with that? Comfortable with that? Okay. So moving forward, I have finance committee will now be Kenda and Jameson. Credentialing monthly as laid out. Foundation will be Ashley and Taylor, and building will be Kenda and Tanya. Am I missing anything that? Right. I think we probably need a motion to that effect to effectively appoint those people, and then we probably need, I think so. Yes, and then we probably need a separate one for the the foundation to reappoint. Maybe we can include them too. Is that okay, Lena, if we do all of that in one motion, or does that get too sticky?
No, you can do it that way. Just your motion can be very simple, just to accept the appointments as discussed.
Thank you.
Can we motion to appoint ourselves? Or is that?
I think it would be a motion to accept the appointments as stated.
Or discussed?
Yes.
Okay. I'd make a motion to accept the board appointments as discussed.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Everybody happy with their assignments? Speak now or forever hold your peace. At least for your. Okay, then for the motion to accept the appointments as stated, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, motion carries.
We make, I didn't make the, should we make a? May I make a motion to accept the nation board member?
Oh, I was thinking we were just including that. Did you
Okay.
intend to
I
have that
intended
separate?
to include that in my.
Should be right down.
Yes.
Yes, they're all current, so it's just a reappointment, basically. Okay. The MRG ambulance grant resolution. That one. Harry, do you want to give us any background, or Bill, either one of you want to speak to that? I know BJ's on the call too, I think. So whatever information you want to, background you want to provide.
Yeah, and BJ, feel free to jump in, but it's putting the box from MS-15 onto a brand new Ram diesel chassis. The quote is 241,000. We talked about it about 2 years ago, and the quote was closer to 200,000. So you can see everything just continues to be more expensive. But like I said before, we have 6 ambulances and 2 are dreadfully old. So
It's the same company that we did the remount with.
we're so yep, the found.
That never happened. This is still the same.
BJ? Maybe.
I couldn't hear what Jameson said. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hey BJ, just curious, is this a continuation of the process of putting a box on a new chassis from a while ago, or is this a new proposal?
Nope, this is a new proposal. So when I came in about 2 years ago and started this process, we ended up skipping the first year, and then this past year we made the new purchase, which should arrive in April, first weekish of April this year. So this will be a new remount for a truck that's got a 2012 chassis on it right now.
Okay,
But we did one previously. I think it was before BJ came.
yeah, it was with Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. Jen did one about 4 months before I came, and that truck is doing well. It has about 85,000 miles on it already.
Oh, wow. And everyone's happy with it? It's not the stepchild of the group?
No, it's actually one of the more favorites.
Good.
All of our trucks are really, well maintained. So I've got a couple of other quotes out at different companies, but the one that Carrie's speaking about is the exact same company that did that remount, because they were the ones to get me the quickest quote.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, yeah, thank you.
They did us a fabulous job, if I remember.
Yeah.
Didn't they deliver it and everything? They took
Yes,
care of
ma'am. It's Aero Ambulance out of Des Moines, Iowa.
Thank you, BJ.
Yes, ma'am.
So MRG grants go for the slip board, go for the slip board on June 18th. But they require motion and Jan has the. Well, Jan, do you have that?
It's, it's in here. 3-2026. Right, board members, questions? Take action.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 3-20.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ashley,
Second.
second by Jameson. Any further comments, questions, concerns? All in favor of the motion to approve resolution number 3-2026, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we now under new business have Dr. Burnett's contract amendment. I'm assuming we'll need to discuss that in some extent during executive, so we'll bypass that one for now. And we have no FOIA requests to consider tonight. So that puts us at the end of our business for the evening at the moment. And I would ask for a motion to enter into executive session after a brief recess, please.
Need to go into executive session. For the purpose of.
All of them.
Real estate contracts and legal.
All of them.
Good job. Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Motion, any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you.
We sit at that.
Yes.
You go right ahead.
You can go, mine is the only one.
No,
I'm
I'm
gonna
going.
go
I'm
too.
just
I
gonna-
just wasn't gonna beat you there.